time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur podcast, where we are here to help those of you who are too inspired to retire to get a different perspective on what it means to age, sage, and live at this stage of life. Today, I have with me a fellow Canadian, Alison Verge, who's joining us from Toronto area, and we are going to be talking about all things love, sex, juiciness, etc., relationships, and sneaky patterns that keep us from finding and having the love that we want in our life. I personally wanted to book this specifically because I'm looking for a boyfriend. So if you're listening and you're single and you happen to be somewhere in the world and like to travel, I'm just saying, maybe we should connect. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. All right, welcome, Alison. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I've been excited to be on here.
You can perhaps give me some tips on what might be a better approach than just generally.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's a pretty good one, actually. I love it.
All right. As usual, folks, I'm going to give you the official intro. Then we're going to find out the juicy behind-the-scene tidbits about Alison and launch into this topic, as well as finding out more about her journey. So, Alison Verge spent 25 years managing strategic relationships in business, and she believes our romantic ones deserve the same rigor. After a series of traumatic events, she refused to settle for pity or wait for love to happen. Instead, she crafted the L.O.V.E, L-O.V.E engineering process. Learn and leverage, map your subconscious patterns, overcome and optimize, replace self-sabotage with winning strategies, visualize and validate, design your ideal relationship and test compatibility, and engage and evolve. Execute bold actions and grow as you go. I love me a good acronym. She's coached hundreds of high achievers over 40, especially the 55 plus crowd, and proven that intentional design beats blind hope every time. Well, you know, that kind of makes sense in business, in life, in everything. And yes, most people put more time in planning their vacation than they do in planning their business or their love life, and both of which are a lot longer than the vacation, hopefully.
Yes.
So tell me how something about you. Oh, and I forgot to warn you about this before. We're also going to talk about your why you do what you do. Tell me something about you that people wouldn't guess. Maybe even your friends don't know.
Yeah. Oh, my friends don't know.
Yeah. So what would I not guess that if I just met you and didn't know you very well?
Well, you probably wouldn't know that I have a secret passion as a musician, that I was growing up quite a good musician. I even played for the conductor for the Queen. I actually won a competition I was a flautist. I could just pick up an instrument and just kind of play. But unfortunately, I gave it up, and I'm sad about that. So I am hoping to take that up again. But I also have a kind of a secret desire to be a drummer. And don't ask me why. You know, we all kind of have this secret desire. But I don't know why, but I just want to be a drummer.
You're really secretly a rock star, and you just march to the beat of your own drum. That makes perfect sense to me.
It does.
Okay, so I'm going to throw your own words back at you. Intentional design beats blind hope. So this I hope someday to pick it back up thing. So when are you going to get back to your music, Alison? We're going to just leap right in.
Yes. Well, that would be as soon as I have some time. I know you can make time, but I do have other passions. I'm also I've realized I'm a huge techie. I have become a coder. Pretty fascinated. This is another thing I don't think my friends realize. I've built all kinds of apps, but done the coding myself.
Oh,
So I didn't realize this about myself, that I'm very fascinated by technology and have learned a lot. So that's another kind of hidden thing that most of my friends would not know.
interesting. And that's interesting because I would think one's more of a very right brain kind of creative endeavor.
Yes.
There's a very left brain. I mean, I know music has a lot of math to it and is also very analytical in many ways, but it's also fairly creative, especially for someone who does it by ear.
Yes.
Has that kind of inborn talent. But yeah,
But that's interesting you said that, because that's why I created the love engineering process, is because found myself not fully fulfilled when I was just doing the relationship coaching the way, just in a standard way, because I really have that right and left brain. And I wanted to input that intentionality. I realized there's something missing here, and it occurred to me, and that really we need to create our love lives strategically with intention. And I realized that's exactly what worked for me years ago. And it satisfies that right and left brain. And I've introduced a lot of the methodology throughout all my years of experience. So it kind of brought everything together full circle.
Yeah, well, and even your background has gears and mechanical things behind you and a heart. So it's kind of both those pieces, which makes a lot of sense. So why are you so passionate about this? Not what do you do, not how do you do it, but why is this your why? Why is this your purpose?
Because after being married for 20 years, and having a traumatic accident that left me with this incurable disease, and an end to my marriage, and having gone out there in the dating world myself and struggled, I really fought my way through it with a lot of work, a lot of going back to school, figuring out a lot of research, a lot of interviewing. But I realized that, wow, that was gutting. That was very difficult, and people should not have to go through this. And I realized that one of the main reasons that my marriage didn't work out, on top of the stress of the accident and everything else, was that I didn't build the foundation of me before I built the foundation of us. And a whole bunch of other factors go into play in terms of dating. But I realized, you know what, I need to help people through this, because it can be such a difficult process, and people give up on love, and it's making me incredibly sad. And it's becoming more rampant out there that people don't seem to want to have relationships anymore. And there's nothing wrong with being single if you truly want to be single, but giving up is pretty sad. And that's why I do what I do, because I really want people to realize that when you dig deep beneath the surface and you uncover the subconscious blocks, and you, as I say, kind of build the right foundation or seal the cracks, you really can either build a great foundation, a great relationship, that if you have one that's existing, or find the right relationship for you. It does exist. It is out there. I know people don't believe it is, but it is out there.
Yeah. Well, myself and others would probably say, yeah, right.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I do hear that a lot.
So, okay, so that's kind of what you do, but why do you care if people find love? Like, so what? I mean, I know that you don't want them to go through the difficulty you went through. And I know from your personal experience, but really when it comes right down to it, so what if they struggle with that? Why does that bother you?
The world would be such a cold place without love in it. Love is such a big part of the world. And if we're all I'm watching people out there, and people are just crossing the road without looking, glued to their phones. I can't envision a world where there's no partnership anymore. There's no love. Like, what kind of world are we building here? That is, to me, incredibly sad. I believe people are still having friendships and stuff, but even that, people are connecting online, and they're not picking up the phone, they're not writing letters, a lot of people aren't meeting in person anymore. So we're not connecting in person anymore. And we need we need connection. We need that. We absolutely need that to thrive. And so I feel that's my purpose. It's my purpose to connect people. And this process does work for even friendship connections as well. We do need more connection in this world, and people are hurting.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So really a lot of it is about recognizing the pain that exists in the world when we're disconnected.
Yes.
And have love in our lives, when we don't have that sense of being loved and having someone to give love to, then we get more isolated, more in pain, and it makes the world suffer a lot more.
The World Health Organization, in fact, says that if right now we're in a crisis and loneliness is contributing to a 26% chance of early death. Yeah. So it's become a huge crisis. And so I just feel if I can do my part, then that's great.
Yeah, well, and from a Maturepreneur perspective, I talk about the loneliness epidemic as one of the major trends that's going on right now. And it is an epidemic. It is global in its influence and its impact. And people just kind of dismiss it. I did. Loneliness, that's not so bad. It's not. But like you said, yeah, it increases your risk of death and disease and illness, and we live qualitatively worse lives. And the World Health Organization likens it to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of its impact on your health and well-being. Right. And so loneliness is not just something to be dismissed. It's a real big issue. Certainly COVID contributed to that. A lot of the us versus them mentality that's going on and being perpetrated in the world right now is contributing to that. The digital era where people don't connect in the same way. There's lots of different factors converging here, but it's even worse for those who are older because they may not be doing all that digital connecting. They may not, they may be more isolated, and entrepreneurs tend to be isolated as well if you're a solopreneur and you're not working in a business or an office space. So it's really important to attend to relationships very consciously in order to stay happy and healthy and functional. Even if you don't want a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, if we don't have good, healthy relationships, we're kind of screwed, more screwed. So that's
good. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about your kind of journey and process in terms of how you came to your love formula, your love engineering process, and let's start first with a couple of things that I'm curious about. I know in my experience, there's pros and cons to getting older in terms of dating. I've been single most of my life, in and out of relationships here and there. I haven't been married. My mom was married 5 times. I sometimes joke she got all the marrying genes and didn't leave any left over for me. But also, I think I saw 5 bad marriages and kind of like, so there's a couple of different reasons why. But it's, as I got older, it's much easier to be less approval issues, less neediness, less desperation. Mm-hmm. Happier with myself, less defined by what society thinks I should be, do, and have. Less tolerant of BS and settling for, not being treated well, etc. So that's, I consider, on the plus side. On the con side, it also makes it a little more challenging because there is more discernment. There is more pickiness, or whatever you want to call it. What do you find is one of the bigger challenges for people who are older who want to date? What are the bigger challenges that they're dealing with? And it's any age, but I think there's different challenges at different ages and stages. So let's say 50 plus. What are some of the biggest challenges?
Well, and you're talking about all my clients, because it's funny, when I first got into this, I expected all of the clients who are coming to me to be really lonely and desperate. Like I really need somebody. And it was quite a shock to me that I guess you attract who you are. But my clients were quite successful, over 50, and were like, well, I don't need a relationship. I don't even know if I really want one, but I thought, I'd explore it. I'm hitting, thinking about retirement, and I thought it might be nice to spend time with somebody, but I'm just considering it, and I don't think I want to get married, and I don't. So it's a lot of that. Yeah. So it's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And the challenges are exactly what you said. A lot of concerns, but there's also a lot of concerns that they have and are worried about that don't necessarily exist. So they're extremely concerned about what people are going to say and think, and that they have to explain why they're single, why they've been single for this long. And it's all how you position it. If you're so worried about it, the other person's going to pick up on that. It's all how you say. It's like, I've chosen to be single. I've chosen to work on my career. I've been discerning about who I want to be with. Like, it's an end of story. Like, it's if you make it a big deal, it will become a big deal. But the challenges do become, it's that there are blocks there that people don't realize after all of those years. Exactly what you said is that you have watched a series of unsuccessful relationships. And so you have hidden beliefs. You have some that you're aware of, but you also have a lot of hidden beliefs underneath the surface that you might think, I've dealt with those. They're not an issue. But they're like a big wall often blocking you. And I know because I had the same thing. We don't have, my daughter thinks there's a curse in our family because there hasn't been one marriage that's actually worked in our entire history of relationships on all sides of the family. So she's like, well, my second marriage. And I go, what do you mean your second marriage? And she goes, well, yeah, there's obviously going to be a second marriage. And I go, what? I said, you can break this. She goes, no, it's a curse in our family. It's just one of those things. I go, no, it does not have to be that way. So I'm like, oh boy, okay, I need to start working on her now. But I understand where that comes from, but it does create those blocks. And I had to realize that myself when I was out there dating, because I thought I was smiling and I'm like out there and I'm like, oh, okay, the date, I'm being really great on this date. But I didn't realize that underneath it all, I was like, well, this is obviously never going to work out, in the end. And I had all these thoughts going in my head, and it was really just energetically blocking the right person from coming through. So it's the older you get, I think it's not just that you become more discerning, it's that you have more blocks built up. And it's also, people are discerning, but they're often discerning about the wrong things. So it's so important to do the work to figure out what you actually need. And it's not a checklist. It's actually what you truly need based on who you are and everything you've been through in order for the relationship to thrive. And that is so important. And once you do that work, it'll be top of mind. You'll just make wise decisions. You won't have to be discerning. You'll just be able to have fun, and you'll make the right choice. You'll attract the right people. I don't believe in just go with your heart. I believe in you have to have your head in the game too, but it can be natural once you do the work.
There's a bunch in there that I wanted to kind of touch base on. For sure, the beliefs definitely impact. Like I know, for instance, my mom was married 5 times, and yet really a father or men were absent in my life. They would come and go and come and go, and it tended to be fairly usurious and or violent in her case. And so what I attracted in most of my life is absent men, people who were not available emotionally or physically or both, because that's what I knew of men and relationships, is they were not there. So becoming aware of that really helped. However, I haven't created the present man yet, the one who is present, I mean. And so becoming aware is the first step, but then we also have to go beyond that. And like you said, really shift the focus of what we're intending and choosing and bringing in. So lifting the anchors from the past, becoming aware, but also then reframing those beliefs into new beliefs that support us. So how much work do you think is what I'm going to call inner work in terms of finding that person, and how much is outer work, doing things to, how we dress, how we present, where we go, how often we show up, our profiles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What percentage would you say?
That's funny because I kind of have it as that's a good question, because in my stages, two of them are clearly inner work. Learn and leverage, overcome and optimize are all inner work. Visualize and validate. I guess the visualize and validate, you could say, is partial inner work because you are visualizing, but it is also kind of the outer work too, because you're out there and you're strategizing. You're actually out there and you're working on your profile. You're working on a strategy to, if you're single, to meet people on and offline. But I would probably say it's 65% inner work and 45, maybe even a little bit more. So much of it is inner work. And if you don't do the inner work, to me, it's Band-Aid fixes. You might meet that person, but I've seen it before. People sabotage things. Like it just doesn't work out, or eventually you may not be happy. I mean, there's always the chance, but I just think the inner work is such a big part of it. Of course, if you're single, writing the right dating profile, which I know how to do, is important. But if you don't do the other stuff, it's just not going to work.
Okay.
Important.
I totally agree. So let's talk about your process, your L.O.V.E process.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What are the steps, and how do we apply those to ourselves?
Yeah. So the first step is the learn and leverage. And that is really where it's the core of your being. It's your patterns and your beliefs. And we do a lot of work. This is where you do a lot of exercises, very science-backed exercises, neuro-linguistic programming, to really dig deep at the subconscious level to what is really going on. I mean, there is personality tests as well, but also to uncover we really get to the raw core of who you are. So we know exactly what's going on. It's like looking at you underneath a microscope. And then we take that information, and this is where I like to say we build a blueprint of who you are. And in fact, I have a very, very detailed assessment that I call my DNA assessment. So it's kind of like a L.O.V.E DNA assessment of who you are. And then that helps also build the blueprint. So it kind of takes a lot of it all together. And this helps us then overcome and optimize. So we build a plan to help, okay, so how are we now going to overcome what we've uncovered in the learn and leverage stage? And then optimize as we see, okay, well, you know what, this is not working for you. We need another strategy. Let's shift it and come up with a new strategy. So this is again where NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, can come in. So we can adopt a lot of, there could be timeline therapy there, but there's a lot of I have a ton of different exercises that can be adopted to help people, but it's very customized often to the person. Again, shifting to who you are, and different things work for different people, and people learn in different ways. And I'm a big believer in that. Sometimes one approach doesn't work for one person. It might work one person and not the other. And once we do that, this is where visualize and validate comes into play. And this is where we then, whether you're single or you're in a couple, because I do work with both, is that we then figure out, okay, what is based on everything we've learned about you, who you are, what you need, what are your triggers, all of this information. What do you need in order to have a happy, fulfilling relationship, and how are we going to get that? So if you're single, that's coming up with a strategy for finding love on and offline. And some people choose, don't even talk to Alison about dating online. I don't want to talk about it, right? So, I mean, I often recommend a combined approach. I don't recommend 100% online because I think that can drain a lot of people's energy. But a combined approach works. But if they really don't want to, then we come up with a strategy for offline. But it's really important to do the work to uncover who you are, to come up with a really detailed strategy for meeting people offline. And this is where we then, again, it's all about kind of why I say engineering. It's about testing it. Okay, what's what's working, what's not working, and we realign. Like we see, okay, this is not working for you. Let's see how we can adjust as we go along. But in terms of profile, we really build the story of you, and based on all that information, it's so amazing how when you start to infuse that, it really starts drawing in people you've never seen before. And when you start doing that work, I guarantee it, like, it's incredible how things change, that you'll start seeing people you never thought were possible before. It worked for me. It's worked for all my clients that they never saw people before as well. And then the last stage, engage and evolve, is this is where you've met that person, and it's okay, you've met them, but how are you going to ensure that you have the skills needed to ensure that it lasts? Like, because a lot of people do sabotage the relationship once they find it, especially those with avoidant attachment styles. And how are you going to deal with life's curveballs, which we all know life does throw us those curveballs. So how are you going to deal with those when they come at you? And nurturing relationships is so important. And I know some people go, relationships shouldn't take work. Well, they take nurturing. You have to nurture the relationship. So how are you going to do that consistently to ensure that the relationship thrives and it is fulfilling? Because so many people have that limiting belief that the relationship is just going to kind of go downhill, and that's just the reality. But that does not have to be the case. Mm-hmm. So it's, again, this is a continuous process, and sometimes you have to go back to stage one, because, and in fact, to learn and leverage, I recommend it because we grow. And you have to learn about yourself and your partner again. And it's so important. Couples don't do this. They don't learn about each other. Mm-hmm. And then based on each other, how can you work together as a team? They don't do that. And that is so important for a relationship to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and going right back to that beginning, both of my best friends, Mary and Sharon, used the book, The 8 Dates. That is a workbook that you work through with a partner. It's basically based on the premise of these are the various things you talk about on each date. And it's sex and family and money and, all of these important things that people don't talk about. And both of them have really great relationships now with the people that they're with, have not in the past. And both of them say that it really laid a big foundation for them in terms of getting to know their partner, deepening the relationship, having it be more grounded right from the outset. Because I think we don't have those deep conversations unless there's some kind of structure around it. Because we're not taught to. We don't know how we are brought up. And especially women, we tend to avoid anything too confrontational. We want to be liked and all of that. And so that doesn't serve us, because then we get in these relationships of mystery, not really knowing what the reality is. And that doesn't help. So I agree wholeheartedly with the Learn. I know that they highly recommend the 8 Dates. Is there any books or resources that you recommend that help people find out about themselves and or their partners?
I really like... actually, Terry Real, I'm trying to remember his latest book. We took his latest workshop.
Terry, how do you spell his name?
Real.
But
and Terry Real.
Carrie with a K or
Terry, Terry. Terry. And the reason why I recommend him is because he's very good for men as well. Because sometimes there's books that are like, I do like Gottman and stuff like that too, but sometimes the exercises are not always realistic to adopt on a regular basis. I feel that when you're really angry with each other, like I feel that, and I feel like it's funny, excuse the pun, but Terry Real is very real. Yeah. And he even talks about his own relationship, and the struggles that he has with his wife and how they deal with them. And it's very practical advice that everybody can adopt. And it was so helpful I found, even for myself. And probably the greatest advice, and I'm sure other books do this too, but it's really, I think if we can all pause, pause when we're upset, and really think about where it's coming from. Is it coming from our adult self, or is it coming from our child self, our wounded child self? Because I think when you take that time, you'll realize that probably 3/4 of the time, it's not really your partner standing there in front of you. It's your father, it's your mother, it's your teacher, and sometimes you will need to leave the room. And a lot of books will say that, but what he's very clear about is that you have to tell your partner a time limit about when you're going to come back. So it's, I think it's great advice. And I always try to think that way now. If I'm ever upset about something, I go, wait a second, is this really about him, or is this some sort of trigger? And then I realize, okay, this is a trigger, and just let me just breathe this out. And it's helped so much.
Well, and so he's got a bunch of books, but one of the ones most recent, I think, is Us, Getting Past You and Me with a More Loving Relationship. Got a really good site too. So Terry Real is a great resource. And of course, Alison is as well. It helps to get someone to get external perspective. A long time ago, I did the workbook Calling in the One. And it's a good self-reflection tool to kind of take a look at, what do I believe about this, or what do I believe about that? Because
I've done that.
That one is really be the lover that you want to call in, kind of show up and be that person. And so that's a great resource too. So the first part is getting to know ourselves. So we can do it on our own, but that's often not that helpful because we can't see what's right on the end of our nose. And most of our shit's right on the end of our nose. So it helps to call in a coach, a therapist, someone who can help us with pulling that hand back so we can really look at it more objectively and say, oh, okay, here's where some of the limits are. But then in the stage of the overcome, what are some practical things that people can do to lift some of those anchors of limiting beliefs around relationships? So you mentioned that you do lots of different exercise, but what's one or two that people can do right now on their own to really get a sense of some more perspective?
So here's one that people could do. It's really quick. It's the one-line truth test. So, and you can't overthink this. It has to be the first thing that comes to mind. So it's if I were being totally honest, I'd admit that and then complete that sentence when it comes to relationships or your love life. So, and just write down the first thing that came to your mind. If I were being totally honest, I'd admit that what came to your mind.
Okay. Well, and it might be a series of things, right? So like, for instance, things that just popped through my head were, don't trust that I can find someone that is the right kind of person for me. That was the first thing that came in. Wonder if I just want sex or if I actually want a relationship. Third thing that popped in after that was, I wonder if I really want to do the work, because they're a lot of work. And then the next thing, so like there was a cavalcade of beliefs that kind of came one after the other there.
Exactly.
So writing those down and just kind of looking at it and saying, okay, is it true? And what is the answer to those questions? Do I just want sex, or do I want a relationship? Do I want, et cetera. So that's a good idea. I'm going to do that after this.
It's really key, because a lot of people start to try to convince themselves otherwise. Oh, no, I don't really believe that way. But it actually came out of their mouth when they're talking to me. I'm like, well, you did say it. So
it's in there.
Think about that one.
So let's talk a little bit about visualize, because a lot of people will advise that you got to write down a big long list of every quality and trait that you want and in this partner and so on. What do you mean when you say visualize? Because you talked about sometimes people will show up that surprise you, that are not who you thought you were calling in. Because we have a notion often with all sorts of shoulds. They should be this kind of person. And a preconceived idea of what we really want. Like I remember going through this exercise many years, decades ago, and I really spent a long time on the word strong because I wrote down strong and then I stopped and went, well, what does that actually mean? Like,
Yes.
how would that look? Do I want them to be physically strong? Do I want them to be strong as in what I say goes? Do I want them to be strong as in vulnerable and the kind of strength that comes from being soft? Like, what does that mean to me? Because strong is a very broad word.
It is a very broad word.
What do you mean by visualize?
So, and that is just to back up with what you're saying, that sometimes if you really think about if I were to choose one word that would make me feel truly fulfilled in a relationship and feel that feeling of being at home, what's the first thought that came to your mind? That's also a good exercise because, I mean, normally I put people in kind of a state, using NLP. And it was funny when this happened to me, the word that kept coming out was safe. And I was like, where's this word coming from? But it kept coming out. And that has a lot of connotations to it as well. But this is where, in terms of visualization, there's a lot of work that goes into this, a lot of exercises so that we can be sure that we really have the right picture of what you need. But one of the exercises that I think is so important, like you do personality assessments and values assessments that can give us a good picture. But one exercise that I really like too is a relationship history and patterns. And this is where it's not just love relationships. This goes back to like your early child is even like as far as you can remember, even like if you remember back to age 4, it's as long as you can remember. And it could be your teacher. It's anybody who had an impact on your life. And I usually have people try to think of 20 people. And it's, what did you like about this relationship? And what did you not like about this relationship? And there's always things that weren't your favorite. Like people go, I don't really want to say that. But there's always stuff about everybody that, maybe just doesn't quite align 100% with you, and stuff that does. Yeah. And when you start to then at the end, look at the columns and you circle the similarities in the likes and the dislikes, it's amazing. You start to see, wow, I can really start to see a pattern here of what is so important to me that I did not realize before, and what I absolutely don't need, what like kind of turns me off, which clearly I shouldn't get a partner with these qualities. So that people never considered, and they start to see past relationships, they go, interesting. Maybe that's why these people are all X's, like they have a commonality to them. Yeah. So that's a really key exercise. But then we cross-reference that against all these other exercises. And that's where you get a really perfect kind of indicator of what you need. But we still apply the kind of the 80-20 principle. Like, if you go in thinking, I need every single quality here, but it's kind of like we have a kind of break down the list into, here's your core needs that you must have in order for the relationship to survive. And if you don't have these, the relationship just won't last. But then there's your secondary set, which is, these are pretty important in the relationship. If you don't have them, these are going to be the ones that cause issues that you're going to have to work on. They're going to cause conflict, but they're not, if you have the other ones, the relationship will still work. And then there's your icing on the cake. Those are your desires. And a lot of women have under this, I want them to be handy. So that's an example. I think almost every woman has had that on her list. So it's going to move that up the list. But that's kind of an example, or, one of those. It's icing on the cake. So maybe if all the other things are in play, that one could go, and you could send them to a course or whatever, and you could become handy, right? These are modern times. So that's the example. But it really, and once you understand this about yourself, like I said, it just becomes natural. Not only do you draw these people in, but you know what you need. And my clients go, you know what, I met this guy, and before I would have totally liked him, but I already know now that that's not the person that I need. So I passed, and I'm like, wow, good for you.
Interesting. That's really cool. And when you were talking about that, I was literally visualizing all the men I've dated, and the song "One of These Things Is Not Like the Others" kept going through my head because they're literally short to much taller than me, black, white, Indian, no commonalities whatsoever physically to them. I have a type, but I'm also, not real married to that type. But when I was kind of looking at what are some of the other qualities and characteristics in terms of what I like and don't like, I think the don't like list would be quite a bit longer, hence there being X's, right? But also getting clear on, again, what I do love and want to call in. And I think one of the biggest things I know it is for me, and I'm assuming it is probably for a lot of older women, especially, we'll talk about, and it may be just the same for men. Don't really believe that kind of love is possible because there's been so much compromise. There's been so much stuff that didn't work. We see so many people unhappy or divorced or both. And so how do we find faith again that a very workable, loving relationship is possible?
That's where a lot of the NLP work comes in, to kind of break down those beliefs, because they can be quite strong. But also it's about learning. Like, once you start to date a different kind of person, that will change that belief. You have to experience it. You also have to break down that belief by looking at the evidence. Do you actually, I know directly you haven't experienced that, but do you see any examples out there in the world of happy relationships? Does it actually exist? Is it possible? Mm-hmm. Like, is it? I mean, you do see some happy relationships, right?
Yeah. Well, and especially like my two best friends that I mentioned are both stupidly in love and very, very happy and seemingly have perfect relationships for them. Neither of those men and neither of those relationships would work for me, but they work really well for them. And so that gives me a lot of hope. And both of them met them in their 60s.
Yes.
And one had never been married and the other had been married for a long time and very not, they were roommates, not married. And so I am happy to see that there are examples of it can work, and looking for evidence. I have a coach who said, look for the evidence of awesome instead of the evidence of, it doesn't work.
Exactly. And that's what I think we do so often in a lot of areas of our life. We always look for the negative instead of the positive. But it's also, and this is where the design aspect comes in, it's designing the right relationship for you. Right. And I mean, I was at a big trade show. I was talking at a trade show the other day, and so many women came up. They're like, I don't need that. I don't want to get married again and live with somebody. And I'm like, well, who says you have to?
Yeah.
Like, if you could have a partnership and just a companion. Mm-hmm. You don't have to who says you have to get married? I've been with the same partner now for 8 years in a very committed, loving relationship, but we don't live together. And people keep saying, well, why aren't you guys married? Why don't you live together? I'm like, why do I have to? Like, why, if we're happy?
Yeah.
We were both married for a long time and we're happy this way. Why do we have to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. My friend Mary is not getting married. They've been together 3 years and they, are buying a house together and they live together and stuff. And the other one is waiting for, one partner is waiting for the other to catch up to okay, let's get committed here. And the other is just more analytical and take a little more time. And either way is fine as long as it's the way you want, right? Like, yes. I often joke that not necessarily joke, and in fact, with one partner was going to do this, a side-by-side duplex, have a door in the middle, have your own space, and then you can easily come and go in one another's lives when you want, but you have your own space. That's exactly for some people, right? For me, because I live a mobile lifestyle, it needs to be someone who can either travel or is who I come back to. when I come
Yes.
home, and is okay with that, and that works for both of us.
Yes.
That's part of what I'm looking for in my unique situation or requirement kind of thing.
You're probably getting lots of applications right now after. I'm up for that.
Hey, let's see. Your mouth to God's ears. Let's go. Okay, you have a gift for people that gives them. So tell them a little bit about what that is.
Yes, it's a secret love block quiz. So it will actually take you through, and it will tell you what your unconscious blocks are. That kind of takes a deeper level, but it will tell you what your basic blocks are, and it only takes a few minutes. And it will also come with, after you take it, a free Love Clarity Kickstart workbook.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah.
And so you can go to pathtolovemastery.info is your website, right? And then /secret-love-block. That's the URL for that if you're listening. But if you are listening on one of the podcast platforms, what I highly recommend is go to the vault. That's in our show notes for this episode and all of our episodes. And in the vault, it'll take you to Alison's beautiful gift in terms of this quiz and the workbook, but it'll also show you all the gifts from all of our speakers from all of our episodes. So it's like a 24/7, 365 day giveaway. So you can go in and see and grab other free gifts that will you can opt into. And yes, you have to go to each person's page and opt into their list. And yes, you'll get emails from them, but that's just part of the process. And those who who can help you, follow up with them. Those who is not something you need right now, just let them know. But there's lots of gifts that you can go and find and see the other episodes that you missed that you might want to go back and get more information on. So go and grab Alison's quiz, and I'm going to take it right after this, and then you'll get the workbook. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that's actually not my actual website. My website's being updated, but that's kind of the home base for my landing page. But
so tell us where people can find you.
So right now it's my old persona, not the love engineering persona, but that's okay. You can still find information about me at Path to Love. It's basically https pathtolove.com. Or I'll send you my link tree, which has all my information. Okay. But I wanted to tell people that I am starting a membership that's pretty cool. That is a great, cheaper way to work with me. That's going to involve a virtual world, and you can sit by a wood-burning fire, and it's going to have all the exercises in there. It's going to be a really cool space. So
I'll send that to you. Where do we find out about that? Because I'm interested in that. So where do we find out?
That's pathtolovemastery.info, same URL, but /mastery excel. So ACCEL.
ACCEL.
Yes.
ACCEL. Okay. That's interesting. So go to Path to Love, 2, not spelled out.
Yes.
Mastery.info for that.
/mastery excel.
Okay. To love. Mastery.info / I have secret love block open. Okay. Mastery Excel, right?
Yeah, Excel. Yeah. ACCEL.
Okay. Got it.
Perfect.
We'll put that in our show notes as well so that people can find that and join that as well. So there's a lot of things that we didn't talk about. So just very quickly, I'm curious, how long have you been in business in general?
So I manage relationships between corporations and business, or on the corporate relationship side for over 20 years, probably 25 years. And then I've been doing this side for about 7
And was that all your own business as well, or were you employed by the corporations?
I had my own business for about 12 years.
Okay, so you've been
12 of those years, and the other times I worked for them. So I've been myself about 20 years on my own.
Okay.
I guess.
So what do you find, if anything, is different for you now as an entrepreneur than it was 10 years ago?
I find it's funny that you said lonely. I find that being a solopreneur can be quite lonely. It's after COVID because I did a lot more in person. And then during COVID, I got so used to doing everything online that I just sort of realized, you know what, I've got way too used to just booking everything online that I'm now starting to get out and do in-person workshops and stuff. So I would say that's the big difference. I'm a person who thrives with in-person connection, and I've realized that was a big reveal for me, and that, wow, you know what, I need that connection with others. Being a solopreneur can be even though you're connecting online, it's not the same. So it works that way whether you're actually meeting people romantically or in a business sense. It can be lonely.
Yeah, it can. And what's kept you in the game so much? Like, you've pivoted and reinvented and you're repositioning again. And that's part of the journey and the process as we,
Yes.
Our markets shift, our ideal demographic often shifts and follows us. So I used to serve women exclusively. And then I became aware of ageism because it impinged in my world. And so now I'm a big advocate for maturepreneurs because, this whole dismissing us BS has to go. So my stand now is to end ageism through entrepreneurship. And before it was to, empower women to shift the world from fear to love, one happy and empowered woman at a time. Same kind of work, using entrepreneurship as a vehicle for expression, but a different market. So we shift as we evolve, right? Like, I wouldn't have thought to address the maturepreneur market when I was 40 because it wasn't in my world yet, right? So how has your business, how are you different now than you were before? So the connecting piece, but what's different in your business too?
I think the knowledge I've gained through the growth of my business, through helping my clients, realizing what the issues are and how I can best help them, has been incredible. Just realizing that it is about strategy, it is about intention. As I've learned more myself, it's also realizing, like, I really do want to work with men and women because it really does keep me balanced, understanding men and women. And I'm always hearing from women that, men, there's no good men out there. But then I coach these amazing men and I'm like, there's lots of good men out there. Yeah. So I think just that realization, because I constantly hear from coaches, just coach women. And I'm like, no, I really want to coach both. Yeah. So that has been huge for me. But I think I've changed so much because I brought in all my knowledge for the past, 40 years, maybe a little less, but I was always an entrepreneur. I swear I had businesses in public school. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Yeah. But I've literally brought in almost everything into play now. Yeah. And so I'm so excited about it. It's like every facet, because I'm always learning and I'm always growing. And so that's what kind of keeps me going, is that I feel like I'm always evolving and my business is just going to keep growing stronger as a result, because I don't believe in stagnation. I believe in growing. And so, yeah. So
how many more years do you think you're going to be doing this work?
Till I'm 90. Ask my daughters and everybody who knows me. I will never stop working. I love what I do. I never sit and go, oh, I love it. It's hard for me to close my computer, I have to admit, but it fascinates me. And I will step back and travel more, but I will always do this work. It's just a matter of how much or how, but I'd love to, do more retreats someday, and it'll evolve, but I will always work till the day I die, literally.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. And, I hear that from so many of my guests and so many of the people that I know in this world. That's pretty much the universal answer is, why on earth would I quit? I love what I do.
Yeah.
Now, it might evolve in terms of how much I do it or where I do it from or whatever, but yeah, and I'm the same way. I love my work. I cannot imagine not doing this. I can imagine doing it in, like, from a sailboat going around the world.
Yes.
Or a cruise, live aboard a cruise ship, either one of those are in my future. But yeah. So what's one last piece of advice that you have for people on the entrepreneurship front? So if they're thinking of stepping into a business, or they've been in business for a while, like you and I, but they're, perhaps lost a little of their pizzazz for their business, or they're tired, because that is one of the things we deal with. When you've been doing it for 4 decades, like I have, you go through periods where you're just tired of, everything. And it's not, or we lose connection with our why, which is why I do a lot of work with people on that. What's one thing that you would advise these people?
Trust yourself, trust your knowledge. Not that, of course, I'm a huge believer in personal growth, but I think we hide behind that a lot in terms of launching. I did that for quite a while, and I convinced myself that, I just need this. So in the fear, because changing businesses, I was like, I need another course. I need another course. I need another coach. So I did so much education and personal growth that to tell myself I needed that instead of actually pressing launch. Yeah. Because I was so afraid of failing. Yeah. When I needed to just press the button, the big button, the green button to launch. Yeah. So I would say, just do it. Like, I need a big Nike sign. I'm like, just do it. And then you learn, as everybody fails. Fails a strong word, but things are not always perfect. So you just have to learn from your mistakes and evolve and learn as you go. And just trust that you do have knowledge. I realized I have a heck of a lot of knowledge. I don't need to keep searching everywhere else. And there's so much information out there that it becomes overwhelming. And I felt I had to do everything. So I'd have like 20 tabs open going, I have to do this, 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 and I have to do this. So just block out some external noise and don't go down the path I did and try to work on 20 projects at once.
Yes, that's so funny, because it thinks you want to raise your hand. I have 20 tabs open on my computer right now, and I am just glanced over at my screen and went, yeah, that sounds about right. And, even for me, I've been doing this for the better part of 40 years and have done a lot of personal growth work, like you said. In fact, I facilitate personal growth and stuff. And I, on Monday, when I had a call with my coach, had a big meltdown. It's like, why is this not working? Why is it not going faster? And she just reminded me, it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years for you to get a business to a point that it's actually paying you consistently and well. And people forget that, and they don't plan for that. And that's just the reality of it. And it's like, I know that, I teach that, but everyone promises, and then especially in this online expertpreneur world, $1 million in a weekend and other BS stories. And so I keep meeting people who say, man, I wish I'd met you $50,000 ago, because they're like what you said you were doing, which is, I just need another course. I just need another coach. I just need another before I get going. Great advice. I hope you all heard that. Trust yourself. You know enough. You are enough. Just do the damn thing. Pitter patter, let's get at her. And if you're having a hard time with that when it comes to your business, book a call with me. So you'll find the link somewhere below. So book a call to talk about what's one step you can take to just get going. Because sometimes that's all you need, is to just get over the inertia, the fear, and pull the plug, or pull the lever, or pull the gun, whatever you're going to pull something and get moving. So if you're looking for that next step in your business, give me a call. If you're looking for that next step in your love life, you're going to call Alison. So what's one last piece of advice you want to leave everyone with when it comes to finding or improving the love in our life?
It's possible for everybody. When I found my partner, I was disabled with, a condition that I really didn't know the prognosis of. I mean, I still have the condition, but it is possible for everybody out there, no matter how old you are, how many wrinkles you have, what your weight is. It is possible for everybody, because I hear a lot of limiting beliefs around that too. I'm too old. I'm not tall enough. There's all kinds of them. So, get over that. There's someone out there for you. There's someone out there who's looking for you right now. So just, if you do the work, it's out there for you.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you so much for being here, Alison. Thank you for being an advocate for more love in the world. I think that's probably the best work that can ever be done. So thank you. And those of you who are listening, reach out to Alison, take action, do something right now today to create more love in your world. I'm Jeanette Anderson, the Maturepreneur Maverick. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and share this episode. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away, so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.